Hi there, Eric from Quarterband Guitar Studio. Today I'm going to talk to you about how to assess a guitar for playability. So whether you just found a guitar in grandma's attic, you're looking to buy a new one, or you're brushing the dust off of one that you already had, you kind of want to go through this nice little checklist here just to make sure everything's doing what it's supposed to do. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look at the instrument and look for any stress points. So this one here, you might think that there's a stress point here because it is missing a string. However, this is not a deal breaker. A lot of times when beginners are going out and buying guitars, first thing they see is, oh no, it's missing a string. This is not a big deal, usually. What we really do want to assess is any points of tension on the guitar, right? Ultimately, with an acoustic guitar, we have the strings that are running from one end to the other. So there's an attachment point here and there's an attachment point here. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check right here and just make sure that I don't see any kind of gap underneath there, and I shouldn't be able to fit like a credit card or any kind of anything under there. So that should be perfectly flat, and lucky for us, this one is. I'll show you an image right here. This one, not so great. And then just looking at that from all angles here, the next point that you're probably going to see stress is this heel where this neck joint is attached to the guitar, right? Because this is two different pieces. This is a separate piece right here. You're going to want to check and make sure that this is not lifting away from the instrument, right? And check it from all sides, the front side, the underside, and then the back side, right? Make sure that that's not separating away from the instrument. Another thing to take a look at is just the top of an acoustic guitar. Now, the electric guitar, this will not be so much of an issue, but with an acoustic guitar, we just want to check the top and just make sure it's pretty flat and it's pretty straight. We don't want to see any bubbles, warps, or whatever. As I rub my hands across the top, I'm just looking for any kind of like raised areas, any problem areas here. Okay, so other things to consider is the nut attached here. So this nut, this white piece here, it shouldn't slide. It shouldn't move. It should be solid on there. So I'm just going to kind of push it around there and make sure that it's solid. Okay, so for an electric guitar, similar. We're not too concerned about the joints here. You want to keep an eye out for any kind of cracks, again, at the neck joint. You want to make sure that your nut isn't sliding around. You want to look for perhaps tracks. Some guitars have multiple pieces of neck where this headstock is a different separate piece here. So you're going to see a glue joint, and that's not necessarily a big deal, but you want to make sure that there isn't any kind of stress or cracks. You also want to just look at the surface of the instrument. Just make sure, okay, there's nothing weird on the fretboard. You're looking for maybe dents, dings, divots inside the actual frets themselves, right? And then obviously with an electric guitar, you kind of want to run the same thing as you want to look down and you want to make sure that you don't see any twists in the neck. One thing that I'm always going to look for is the action on the instrument. Now, the action on the instrument is totally adjustable on almost every guitar. And the action ultimately means is how high the strings sit up off the fretboard. If you can slide a pencil underneath the strings, between the strings and the neck, you got really high action. And that's going to be indicative of probably another higher level issue. But a lot of electric guitars are pretty simple to adjust the action. If you're watching this video, it's probably a little bit too early for you to be making those adjustments yourself. Just consider sending that out to a repair shop. If you're a student at Quarterband, our students get 10% off of repairs. So something like that might cost somewhere around $50, depending on what they find. Okay, so as far as actual playability, one of the absolute easiest things to do is just play the guitar. What you want to do is play every single fret on every single string. So if you've never played the guitar before, and this is like you assessing for the very first time, does the guitar I own have potential? We want to make sure that we're fretting properly. So what I have to do is just simply squeeze enough here to press the string up enough so that it hits the next piece of metal, right? So if I want to hear this note right here, I'm going to squeeze it until it hits the piece of metal. And if I want to hear that one, I'm going to squeeze it just enough so it's hitting that piece of metal, and so on and so forth. And I'm just simply going to pluck that string and that string only. I'm just kind of lining up my right hand and my left hand. I'm just going to give it a pluck. I want to make sure that I get a solid sound out of every single note on this guitar. We want to hear a nice, clean jingle jangle. Right? You can kind of tell that's not really jingling and jangling. That's okay. There we go. That's pretty. Every single note should have a unique sound. So if you played two different notes and they have the identical sound, you're going to have an issue with your fret. You got a high fret somewhere, or your action's too low. So here we can tell, like, hey, that's pretty good, except right down there, just by playing the open string with no fingers on it, there's a slight buzz. That's okay. Electric guitars tend to be a little bit buzzy. The problem's going to be that went completely dead. Now, when I get that sound, I'm just going to double check and make sure that there isn't anything in the way with my hand. There isn't. That maybe if you're wearing long sleeves, that your sleeve isn't covering the strings. If you have long hair or a long beard, that there's no part of your body covering the strings making that sound. If there isn't, then you're going to have an issue with your guitar. So you can hear right there, that is not so good. So this guitar is having issues down here at the first fret. Okay, so all those notes there, like fourth fret and below, are a little bit sketchy. You don't even hear those notes. Notes on all of my strings there. There by string 7, it's fine again. You can hear it. The guitar shouldn't buzz like that. Now, when the guitar's in tune, again, it's maybe 130 pounds of tension, acoustic guitars or more. So imagine there's a small adult standing on your guitar. Now, how long have those strings been on there? So if there's someone standing literally on the neck of your guitar for 15 years, what's going to happen to that piece of wood over time is it's going to start to curve. It's going to start to bow. This is normal. So there are adjustments that can be done, and regular adjustments should be done to a guitar. If a guitar is just put in storage over time with the strings still on it, or the tension still on the truss rod, then that's going to cause problems. So you want to make sure that the guitar has been properly maintained. If you're not sure, don't buy. So hopefully this was helpful. I breezed through this stuff really, really fast, just because I get excited about this. But I want you to really know, like, here's the main things to be taking a look at. One, are there any cracks or lifting points at the bridge? Are there any lifting points anywhere at any seams? Look for connection points. Where does wood meet wood? Where is there clearly two pieces of wood that were joined together by your manufacturer? Take a look there and make sure nothing's separating. If it is, don't buy it. Those could be catastrophic failures, right? So if you have clear separation between the neck of your guitar and the body of the guitar that's not supposed to be there, then you don't want anything to do with this guitar. If you have an acoustic guitar, if you have a steel string guitar and the bridge is starting to lift up from the body of the instrument, you don't want anything to do with that, okay? Hopefully this is helpful. If you have questions, feel free to send us an email, teaching@quarterbendguitar.com, and happy playing.